Hello, fight fans. We got to talk about this Friday's big card, Bellator 222. Let's talk about the odds. Let's get some predictions on the big fights. If you like what I do here, make sure and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video or go live, like this Friday at 6 p.m. for Bellator's 222 Fight Companion. We have three big fights that have such dynamics to them. There is such uncertainty in these three fights that I don't remember a card where the top three fights have so many variables, at least in a very long time. I can't think of one. We have Chael Sonnen taking on Lyota Machida, of course. We have Rory Macdonald defending his welterweight championship against Nieman Gracie in the welterweight Grand Prix. And then we have, coming over from Japan, DAZN's bantamweight champion, Kyoji Horiguchi, taking on Bellator's bantamweight champion, Darrion Caldwell. Let's start out with that match, because that one is an interesting one. If you don't know a lot about Kyoji Horiguchi, he actually likes fighting in Japan. Some people are not in the UFC because they didn't make it or they got cut. He's not in the UFC because he prefers fighting in Japan. He went 8-1 in the UFC. His only loss, a memorable, literally last-second armbar loss to Demetrius Johnson. And he only has 2 losses in his career. He hasn't lost in almost 4 years. He is electric. Darrion Caldwell went over to DAZN last year, on 6 months ago, and took on Kyoji Horiguchi for the DAZN championship. Now, Horiguchi submitted Caldwell in the 3rd round in Japan. That fight was for the DAZN bantamweight championship. Darrion Caldwell later said, I want to redo this. In DAZN, it's inside of a ring. Most of the rules are reminiscent of Pride. They have head kicks to a downed opponent. They have a ring instead of a cage. They have yellow card still penalties for inactivity. So it almost is a different sport. And I can see where Darrion Caldwell is coming from. In 29 fights, so that was only the 3rd submission of Horiguchi's career. This guy is a knockout artist. Darrion Caldwell, as big of a stud he is in Bellator, he has not faced the competition of a Demetrius Johnson. Very few people have. He's one of the greatest ever. Horiguchi, I think, man, he is right there. Knocked out Ian McCall, retired in 9 seconds. He's fought, I believe, 11 times in the last about 2.5 years, similar to like a Donald Cerrone. He's fought good competition, including one of those Darrion Caldwell. And the guy's an absolute stud. Darrion Caldwell, thought to be one of the greatest pound for pound, maybe in the world. Definitely in Bellator, great champion over there. He's taken out a lot of guys. Only has 2 losses in his career, 13-2. Guy's an absolute stud wrestler. His wrestling is second to none, and he can hold people down for full rounds. That being said, 5 rounds, this is going to depend a lot on how Horiguchi does in the cage compared to the ring. When I first looked at this, I seen the odds. Darrion Caldwell was a -177 favorite. And I thought, I understand that because they're coming to the United States. They're going to be inside of a cage instead of a ring. It's his championship. It's his crown and everything. But then I thought about it a little further. I did a little more studying, and I said, listen, this guy just fought 8-1 in the UFC, Horiguchi. So he's proven that he can fight, the best fighters in the world in a cage or a ring. It doesn't matter. Just like Demetrius Johnson, just went over to ONE FC, did very well inside of a ring after dominating in the cage in the UFC for so long. I'm going to take Horiguchi. I actually think he finishes Darrion Caldwell, becomes the first guy ever to knock him out. And since this is a 4-round fight, I think that plays in his favor. Just because he is better at finishing guys. I think he knocks out Darrion Caldwell in an exciting fight in the 4th round. Now, talk about variables to a fight. This next fight coming up is for the welterweight championship. It's the semifinals of the welterweight Bellator Grand Prix. And it takes one of the greatest welterweights ever, Rory Macdonald, against an up-and-comer from one of the greatest families in the history of MMA. Of course, we're talking about the Gracies. You have undefeated Nieman Gracie, whose stock went way up with an impressive victory over Ed Ruth in the last round. Rory Macdonald's last match against John Fitch, he ended up going to a majority draw where one of the cards actually had John Fitch winning. 2 of the cards had it a draw. Since Rory is the champion, he goes on. Afterwards, of course, a lot of you seen Rory Macdonald doubted himself. He said, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. He says, I've recently converted to Christianity, and maybe punching in the face doesn't really match up with what I want to do with my life right now. So a lot of people wondered if he would even show up for this match. John Fitch sitting on standby in case he didn't. I thought John Fitch won that fight. I think the majority of people think he did, or at least more than not. Anyways, John Fitch, he had a great fight at 42 years old. He could step in. Rory Macdonald, they talked to him this week, though. He said he thought about what he said. He said a lot of those things, he said, in the heat of the moment after a fight. And a lot of fighters don't, really like to interview, especially after they've been in a tough battle. They can say some crazy things. It almost looked like he was going to retire there after the Fitch fight. Now he says, if you think I'm back, come out and find out on Friday. So we're going to come back and find out on Friday. He is a favorite coming into this as well. Not as big a favorite as he would normally be. It's been around minus 150 to almost 200. It's gotten closer to 150 recently. Nieman Gracie, an absolute stud, one of the best Gracies we've seen come out in a long time. He's undefeated. He's very impressive against Ed Ruth. Shows that he has more than just the jiu-jitsu of the past Gracie generations of the 90s and the early 2000s. I think he is the new generation of Gracie. He is the new experiment. Nieman Gracie, he is an actual mixed martial artist. This one I would not bet on. This is very hard to predict just because we don't know where Rory Macdonald is mentally. And this guy's been a guy who has really kind of had some strange, things he said in the past, and kind of strange mental outbursts and timelines in his career as it is. I'm going to take Nieman Gracie. I think if he gets a fair shake on the cards, I think he gets either a unanimous decision or a late round submission. Just with that mindset, I think another 5-round battle is just going to be very, very hard for Rory Macdonald. I didn't see that killer instinct from the past in John Fitch. Unless somehow he's able to find that and bring it back, which is very, very rare, I have to lean towards Nieman Gracie in this one by either a majority decision or a late submission. Now we go into probably the most anticipated match of this. Actually, the co-main event. It was originally the main event, but it's former UFC stars Lyota the Dragon Machida he's taking on the American gangster Chael Sonnen. Machida's 41 years old now. Chael Sonnen, 42. These guys are obviously on the backside of their career. Who takes this the most serious? Lyota Machida had his debut recently in Bellator. He admitted he had some jitters, being that it was a change. He'd been in the UFC for so long. Still pulled off an impressive victory over a very tough opponent, a guy that was just Bellator champion, Rafael Carvalho, and who, in my opinion, is still world championship level. He can beat probably anybody out there at that weight in Bellator, except for Gegard Mousasi, who just might be the best middleweight on the planet, and light heavyweight. Chael Sonnen coming into this, it's been interesting. He was talking on Ariel Helwani. He was kind of making jokes. He was saying he wasn't on weight yet. Just yesterday, he was saying he had about 10 more pounds to lose. This is Thursday. Today will be the weigh-ins, so I'm sure he made it. But he has not had a lot of promo in this. And Lyota Machida actually said this has been oddly peaceful coming into this fight. He said, it doesn't bother me, people talking trash to me. He says, I actually wish that Chael would have been a little more aggressive with me. He says, because he's really good at promoting and selling fights. Now, has Chael Sonnen lost his fire? He's got so many irons in the fire. He's got his podcast. He's been coaching a wrestling team. He's coaching MMA fighters. He's got the ESPN shows. He's got the Bellator commentary. The guy is so busy. He's doing everything, maybe but training MMA. And I know he's been training, but the odds on this opened up fairly close. I had Machida around a -150. And I thought, wow, I really want to jump on those. I didn't jump on them in time. And I wish I would have, because a lot of people are thinking the same thing that I am. Now Lyota Machida has moved to almost a 3-1 favorite. So much money has came in on Machida. The only motivation for Chael Sonnen I can see maybe is recently he said he promised his father that he would win a world championship before he died. He says that's why he's still fighting. So maybe there's some motivation there to pull out one last big victory. But from what he's been saying, his actions and everything, actions speak louder than words, but his words also seem to speak to not being very interested in this fight. This is a guy that lost to Tito Ortiz, who's 43 years old, not so long ago. And I think this is a horrible matchup for Chael. Lyota is a guy that will wait for you to make a lot of mistakes. He's a very hard style to get down. Chael said he didn't bring anybody in really to emulate Machida during this because he didn't want to overthink it. He said there were some guys in the camp that kind of emulated Lyota Machida, because Machida will do all these moves in front of you to kind of make you freeze, make you react, and then he pops you. And it's a little different than an Anderson Silva because he's got that karate stance. He's got that point fighting style that I think Chael Sonnen could have some issues with, and he has incredible takedown defense. John Jones was able to take him down. John Jones, I think, is a much bigger, stronger guy. And I have very little faith. As much as I like Chael Sonnen, I have very little faith that he's going to have the same fire as the Dragon in this one. I'm going to take Lyota Machida actually to finish Chael Sonnen, which would be very rare. I say he knocks him out in the third round. I don't think Chael makes it past the third round. Let me know what you guys think about this. How much are you looking forward to these fights? Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree with my picks? If you do or not, let me know why. Let me know what you think that I could do better. If I missed out on anything in my studying for this. let me know. It's been a quick week. I kind of researched this at work and in the car. But don't forget to come in 6 p.m. on Friday for Bellator's live fight companions. Also, don't forget about our new Tuesday night MMA trivia show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. and then Dana White Contender Series starting at 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So every Tuesday will actually start at 5 p.m. now. Trivia will start at 6. I hope to see you guys there for all of that. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses later.